Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Bob and Val, for doing the greeting and welcome. I see some of you are turning on your cameras, and we certainly invite you to do that if you'd be so kind and do this. We want today to be a conversation. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Josh Yaspig, and I'm the State Director for AARP North Dakota. And I'm so glad you joined us today for the Bismarck Livable Housing Series event on universal design. You know, for more than 60 years, AARP has been working to promote the health and well-being of older Americans and North Dakotans, and we continue that work each and every day. And we're doing we've taken our events online, so we can safely connect and share information. You know, we decided to do a housing-focused series in Bismarck as we've learned during the pandemic that more and more individuals are thinking earlier about their potential long-term care needs, including living options. And we're also trying to help individuals uncover what might be available right here in the Bismarck-Mandan area to help you age as you decide what is best for you. Finally, as you may be aware, the city of Bismarck recently became the first North Dakota community enrolled in the AARP Network of Age-Friendly States and Communities. The AARP Network of Age-Friendly States and Communities was founded in 2012, and it encourages states, cities, towns, and counties to prepare for the rapid aging of the U.S. population. By doing so, a community becomes a better place to live for residents of all ages. So today we want this event and these events to be a forum to share and collect information on how to make AARP great for all ages, or Bismarck great for all ages. And we want this to be interactive. And so we're going to start today by asking a question. And so shortly on your screen, Janelle from our team will put up a poll question. And we want to know, what improvements or modifications do you think you will need to make to enable you to stay in your home as you age? And there are multiple, you can choose as many or as few as you want, but are you thinking you'll have to have easier access into your home, such as a ramp, a chairlift, an elevator, or wider doorways? Do you think you will need to make modifications to your bathroom, such as a grab bar, handrails, higher toilet seat, or non-slip flooring? How about putting a bedroom, bathroom, or kitchen on your first floor? Do you need to make lighting improvements? Or how about installing medical emergency response systems? That would others. So you can just check as many or as few as you want, and then click the submit button, and we'll come back to those in just a second for you. And as you're answering that question, Bob and Val did an excellent job of noting the Zoom features, but just a quick reminder again, you can find them on the bottom of your screen, and you can find the microphone button, which allows you to mute yourself. We are going to encourage you to ask questions during the presentation, but we're going to ask you to do so during the designated time. And so we're asking you to stay on mute until we get to those times. Additionally, if you have questions and you want to make sure you don't forget that question, you can use that chat function, which looks like a little word bubble at the bottom of your screen, and you can type your question in the chat button below, and we'll get to that when it's time to do so. With that, can we see the results of that poll, Janelle? So, of those who responded about improvements, modifications that they think they'll need to make to enable them to stay in their home as they age, there 88% answered bathroom modifications such as a grab bar, handrails, higher toilet seat, or non-slip flooring. 50% said lighting and easier access such as a ramp, chairlift, or wider doorways. And 13% said putting a bedroom or bathroom or kitchen on the first floor. And nobody said an emergency response system or whatnot. So Scott, I think you're going to have a lot to talk about related to those, and we have the right person. So with that, I want to introduce our presenter today and speaker today. Scott Bernstein is with Go Universal, and he's here today to talk about environmental modifications and on designing to ensure all people, regardless of age, disability, or other factors, can safely access their home. And again, just a reminder to keep yourself on mute until the Q&A section, and use the chat function to put those questions in that. So with that, Scott, thanks for being here, and I'm going to let you take it away.
I'm going to share my screen. We've got a lot to go through today, so let's go for it. From the beginning. Let's jump back 1 second. Actually, I'm going to just jump over a few slides. I'm Scott Bernstein, and I want to make sure also that I have some audio. You know what, Josh? I'm going to back out of this for a second.
Sure.
Because when you share, you have to put this little box. Yes, got it.
Technology works. So take your time, Scott.
Got it.
Awesome.
Good.
You sound great, Scott. So take it away.
All right. First of all, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be able to share with you on something that's kind of near and dear to my heart, and that is allowing us to age in place. I think most of us would agree we probably want to live at home for as long as possible. But many times the homes that we live in, we entered when we were a lot younger, and we just bounded up and down the stairs and never thought about what the days were going to be like when maybe we were going to need to have some adaptations to that living environment. But the world has dramatically changed as it relates to environmental modifications and what we can do. And so I've been looking forward to this. Now, I'm going to give you a heads up, two things. One, I am in Phoenix, Arizona this morning where it's 50 degrees and the people are wearing down jackets because they think it's too cold, but I'm coming back to North Dakota. And then I'm in a building that has all motion sensor lights. So if all of a sudden I go dark and then you start to see my arm going, it's because they don't think somebody's in the office. And so it's kind of crazy. But let's dig into this. We'll go through a lot of slides here today. There are some terms that I'd like to just get out of the way right away so we know what we're talking about, because we'll hear things getting bantered around frequently. One is accessibility. And what is really accessibility? Well, you can see some of the little signs over here on the side of this slide that help us understand a little bit about what accessibility is. Don't you love this? There we go. But this was the Accessibility Americans with Disability Act that took place about 30 years ago. But the focus was on people with disabilities. And so the idea was to make things that were going to be accessible for them so they could operate as independently as possible. So when we're talking about accessibility, that's kind of what we have in mind when we're talking about that. But what about universal design? Well, let's consider a little bit about what that can mean, because actually that's a concept that is much broader in nature. And it looks at the whole general layout. And the idea is to make the home in particular as usable for the greatest number of people as those people in the home start to change physically. And obviously, the more a home is usable by a greater number of people, you're also going to have a higher degree of marketability, because we don't realize that many times we're shutting people out of the housing market by virtue of the way the house is designed. So universal design in the structural environment is what we're talking about here. And that involves architects and planners and construction people. But the idea is that it's going to be a home that's good for kids, for adults, for people with disabilities, for people as they age. So it looks at creating that entire environment so that it's usable by the greatest number of people. So here are some basic principles to keep in mind. It needs to be equitable in use, usable by everybody. It needs to be flexible in use, obviously. It needs to be simple and intuitive so that it can be used by anybody and be easily understood. It needs to be able to have the ability to communicate regardless of a person's condition, so that the environment communicates what it is that it's really used for, how it can be used. Tolerance for error, low physical effort, and then size and space and approach need to be considered. So some of those are the basics. So if you ever go to somebody and they're talking about universal design or an architect, these are the 7 basic principles they're going to be looking at. And so we know that there are certain attributes that obviously connect to our physical functioning that change as we age. Um, and certainly as you know, as the life progresses, we need to look at how this house is going to fit for us. And so the idea of this universal design is that this house should fit the entire population. Um, Everyday items that are universally designed, you've seen them, and we often think of, well, it's a curb cut. It's actually an ADA thing that had to be done. Well, they were the one that introduced it to us, but let's face it, that curb cut, I think, is enjoyed by all of us. And it's certainly enjoyed by the mother who's pushing a stroller. It's enjoyed by somebody who's, pulling and pushing a dolly with a load on it, all sorts of things. It's a universal design feature that we all enjoy. Here are some others that we interact with every day: toggle light switches, doors that self-open, ramps, levers instead of doorknobs. All of those things are actually universal design features. Now you're going to hear a little about inclusive design. So what does that mean? Well, actually that has to do more with products so that they can be used by people who may have the need for physical adaptation. And so those are like, a tin can that's shaped differently, a cutting board that can hold things so that a person who has only mobility in one arm can still cut and slice and dice. Kitchen tools, there are a lot of adaptable or inclusive design kitchen tools that are out there. So that's what inclusive design is all about. And then ultimately we get to visitability. What does visitability actually mean? Well, that has to do with a home as well. And the idea is that it can be visited by people who would normally have difficulty getting into a home. So there are a few criteria that need to be met because it needs to be able to accommodate a wheelchair or a walker, those types of things. So 3 basic requirements for visitability: 1 0-step entrance, doors that are 32 inches wide so that a person in a wheelchair can easily get through, and 1 main floor bathroom. And we've all faced this, especially if you are a homeowner in a split level. It's like, oh man, where are we going to do this? Because they're in a wheelchair. Well, we'll haul them up and down the stairs and those things. My wife and I, we did have a home that was designed when we were living in Minnesota that we could age in place. So we created wider doors. We had a wider stairway that if we ever needed to have a stair lift, we could do that without obstructing the stairs. We could live on one level easily. What was really interesting is that we had some of our friends who had disabilities. They were in wheelchairs, or they were utilizing walkers, or they were having to pull oxygen around with them. Well, guess what house became the party house? It was our house, because we had it laid out in such a way that they could easily get in, and it was very navigable throughout the entire house. So let's jump into universal design concepts and let's start to walk through the house. Kitchen is a huge area. It's the room in the house where we all want to be. And this is also the house barrier feature in many places that when homes are constructed, they're difficult to get around in if you have any wheelchair or a walker, because they're many times designed with islands and cupboards and all of the other things that go in. But there are a lot of things that can be done in a kitchen. So the idea is when you lay out a kitchen, you want to conserve the energy. And we're not talking about electrical energy. We want to conserve the physical energy so that we can use it really well. So a linear or an angular should be kind of a standard. And then you need to look at the flooring, because obviously you don't want to make it difficult to get around if you're having to use a wheelchair, a cane, a walker. And you know what? A floor that's easy for somebody who is using those implements to get around in is usually a floor that's happy and easy for all of us to use. We many times don't take into consideration macular degeneration. So one of the places, the kitchen obviously has many times a very white surface floor or monochromatic floor, but when you're having macular degeneration, it's hard to sometimes see positioning on a floor like that. So just a little border of tile that can look like an accent can actually help a person be able to figure out where they're at as they navigate around. So what you're trying to do is address all of the issues in a way that is obviously architecturally pleasing. It doesn't look odd or out of place. So it can be done as an accent, make sure that you've got appropriate lighting and all of those types of things. So all sorts of kitchen plans are out there, but you want to have access space of 30 to 48 inches when you're working with being able to possibly get under a cabinet. And so some of the other physical elements of that kitchen may need to be adjusted. Now, this kitchen was dramatically adjusted for a person who is going to be able to use it, but I'll talk a little bit about co-uses, because sometimes one person may need something that another person living there doesn't. So for example, this is a cabinet, but it was a place where they put a little storage shelf underneath so that a person could easily access the plates so that they weren't bound to have to reach up into that cupboard. But you also notice that they added a drop-down cabinet so that the person could go and simply open the door, and there's a lock lever that pulls it down. And so with a simple tug, they were able to access things that are in that cabinet. There are motorized and adjustable cabinets as well, and I'll actually give a little demonstration of that. So what about the kitchen? Well, we always need to be thinking of solutions. It's a space, and we've been so used to designing it one way that we many times don't have any ideas of what we could do with it differently. So we need to start to think of it having all sorts of solutions. Now, this kitchen was specifically designed for a person who is going to be confined to a wheelchair. And so you can see that there are all sorts of things that were added to this kitchen. The dishwasher is elevated, easy to get to. The cabinets were a little lower. There's an island that was dropped so she could be able to have a work surface. And you'll notice the oven. One of the things that's really interesting, we're used to having the big drop door ovens. Some of them are now swing door ovens. Europe is way ahead of us on this. They put all sorts of things into their homes because many times they're smaller. So many of the ovens that you'll see in Europe, they actually open the door and it slides in. So it leaves a clear path for a person that's it doesn't create an obstruction for the person that doesn't allow them to get closer to the cabinet or to the oven. Some more examples here: a lowering cabinet, elevated dishwasher, again, all sorts of options that are available and actually make life good for everybody else as well. Take a look at this moving kitchen. Well, we'll speed through this. Don't you love technology? Come on, screen, go back.
The smart home is here, but what about the smart kitchen?
Well, let me get out of this. Josh, hang on.
Well, Scott is working on that. I'll just pop in and remind you, if you have questions, you can use that chat function to put them in there. Scott, you might try unsharing your screen and then resharing.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. We'll just
way to do it.
Yep.
It's part of it. So We all are used to having technology hiccups, so no problem.
No, I'm not used to technology hiccups. So we're going to drop down here. But while that's flying by, you can see that there are all sorts of options that are available. That was obviously a kitchen on universal design steroids. And but what's fascinating about that is a company that is actually out of Europe. And okay, there we go. So they are getting ready to distribute in the US. And so that's exciting news because there's an aging population in Europe and they've had to modify a lot of homes. So they've looked at multiple ways to make homes that are universally designed. So now let's talk about the bedroom and bathroom in particular. There are all sorts of things that can be done, obviously, in a bedroom as it relates to hand grips on under mattresses and all sorts of enhancements that can be done to make a bed more accessible. But we need to look at some of the other realities that take place in a bedroom because, again, you're talking about layout and furnishings. Simple little things that can be done. It's not a huge environmental modification. It's a nightstand that has a little tray that pulls out so that things can be set on it. But when you do have a bedroom, you want to be sure that you have got enough clearance space around the bed so that you can start to navigate and circulate around that space. One of the places that's most notorious as it relates to a bedroom are all sorts of carpeting and throw rugs that make it difficult for people to get around. And so look at surfaces that are warm on the feet, but also easy to navigate. And I'm a huge proponent of cork flooring. We had cork in the house that we did design along with hardwood floors. Cork is warm on the feet. It's easy when you drop stuff, it's not going to break. And it's a real cool product and it comes in just multiple colors and it's really easy to keep up. So lighting in a bedroom is a big important element because the right lighting provides safety and should be a primary consideration. You may need to increase some of that ambient lighting because macular degeneration can make it difficult to see. You want to minimize the glare and increase the contrast and improve some of that perception that takes place. It's interesting because I'm actually staying in a community right now that is designed for seniors specifically. And they have a motion sensor. It's not just this one, but they have a motion sensor night light so that the moment you get up, it turns a light on so that you can see where you're going. Just thoughtful little things that were incorporated actually in the design of the building, in this particular case, condos. So, and here is kind of a circulation pattern. And it gives you all sorts of tidbits. You'll make sure that door is wide enough. We'll talk a little bit about closets because we want to reduce the frustration as it relates to where we live and how we can access things. You always have to ask people, how do I get, or can you come and get this for me? It's very difficult. So you have clear spaces, you have light switches that are easy to reach. So let's talk about that storage. Not every one of us can have a walk-in closet, okay? So I fully understand that, but there are things that can be done in a closet that many times get reflected in a walk-in closet. So there are places where you can do a drop-down closet rod. So it can be pulled down so it makes it easier to access in your closet. You can drop some things that are easier to hang things at a lower level. Instead of always trying to reach over your head to pull stuff down from the top shelf, figure out how to reduce the height of some of those shelves. And then you can also do little simple things like pull outs so that you can hang stuff on them. There are tons of things as it relates to a universally designed closet, tons of features. Obviously, roll-in closet spaces create their own environment, and it's easy to create a very accessible environment unless it's tiny. The bathroom is the highest risk area of the house. And so we're going to take a little bit of a journey into bathrooms. And you'll notice here on the right is a bathroom, and then on the left is the same bathroom. The cabinet was designed so that it could be removed so that a person could put a wheelchair underneath, was a handy feature and made that bathroom accessible. And you'll notice that the vanity is dropped at a little bit lower level, and it's still usable by other people, and they don't feel like they're having to lean over. So you want to have clear space. And believe it or not, having been involved in several bathroom modifications, sometimes it means you have to bump into another room to create enough space in the bathroom, because lots of bathrooms I often define were created to be galley spaces. They're just straight in, straight out, and they're very narrow, which creates a problem. So you may need to bump a little bit of space from another room because you want to create some circulation space in that environment so that you can get around. And you want to be able to have a sink that is accessible so that you can circulate and get underneath that. In the home that I'm talking about, my wife and I designed, we actually had 2 different height sinks. She's shorter than I am. And so we designed the sinks to be at the heights that work for us. And then with the design in mind, so that if we ever needed to have circulation space, we could have that simply by removing some cabinets underneath. Again, recommend that the door does not swing into the bathroom. If at all possible. That's not always an option because most bathroom doors swing in, but there's a reason for safety, because if you were on the inside and fell, it's very difficult to get inside the bathroom if somebody's leaning against the door, those types of things. And then you want to also look at having adequate clearance for the door swing. And 32 inches will get you by. 36 is wonderful. And some people have actually opted for 42. By the way, this woman, you'll see, she's using a sink that goes up and down with the touch of a button. So it makes it easy for her to access. Again, looking at that sink, one is obviously very approachable for somebody who needs to get under it. The other is designed so that, you know, if you're not having to have that clearance, you don't need it. Adjustable shower heads, multiple shower heads in showers, and those types of features make bathing a lot easier. You can see here, this is kind of a high-end bathroom, but it was designed with grab bars and multiple shower heads, the handheld shower, so that everybody can use it. Grab bars all over in that shower, along with a bench. So very user-friendly that way. Have no idea how this came to be. You know what? We're going to stop the share again. Josh, you're going to go, what in the world is going on with this guy? Go back. Don't you love technology? All right. I have no idea why this wants to go this direction. Gotta love it. They want to advertise their product to us, and I don't want their product to be advertised. I'm gonna go back here. We're gonna go back here, Josh.
That's what I was just gonna suggest. Is you go past that slide and then just start.
Yeah, got it. Just gotta love it. Bear with me, folks.
As he's doing that, I've seen a couple of questions in the chat box. Keep them coming. We'll get to those here just in a second. So,
grab bars. There we go. The explosion of the grab bars. We've often thought, well, I don't want a grab bar in my bathroom because it's just this ugly stainless steel thing that looks like, the restaurant bathroom. Grab bars come in a bazillion colors nowadays. They come in all sorts of features, textures. Some of them are warmed. I mean, it's unbelievable what is out there. So this world has dramatically changed. You got a couple examples of thinking about solutions in a bathroom. The two over there on the left are designed accessible bathroom. For example, the mirror even tilts over the sink so that it can be used by a person who is either seated or standing, and it has a grab bar that's built right into the sink. Then you look at the person over on the right in the bottom there, look at how she would have to navigate in that particular bathroom. Not a good scene. And you'll see also the grab bar there with a nightlight in it. So that's really cool. Again, having that 5-foot radius turning is optimal if you're using a wheelchair. All right, that's if you're using a wheelchair. And there are now these drop-down grab bars. But what is usually the issue as it relates to grab bars? Finding a place to anchor the grab bars, because most bathrooms were not built with the idea of adding grab bars. So sometimes that makes the modification challenging. But if you are going to be making some of those modifications, some of the new shower inserts actually come with a complete hard surface background. So you can add grab bars anywhere in that shower, which is important because not everyone is at the same height and not everyone has the same strength and capacity. So just some of the things to keep in mind when you're making those types of additions to your bathrooms. Again, simple little thing, elevate a toilet seat can be a simple solution, but also you can elevate the entire toilet if it's necessary. This is the controversial slide in the presentation. The bidet is used all over the world. In fact, we are the late adopters, but it certainly is very useful for people who have limited range of motion or mobility. And actually, I was just talking to a woman in Bismarck, and we were talking about, she goes, oh, I added this. She's perfectly able-bodied. She goes, I added this in my bathroom. I will not ever not have one wherever I live. She said, once you get used to that, she said, there's no way you want to go back. So there's an added feature. There are some more pictures of things that were done. You'll notice that that grab bar that folds down actually is both directions. So you can add it anywhere that works for you. So we many times think they have to be a certain way. They don't have to be. In a public setting, grab bars are regulated by the ADA, like in a commercial hotel, but in your home, you can put them anywhere that works for you. More pictures of bathrooms. Well, gotta love this stuff. This bathtub has a transfer bench that's actually built into it. So a person can slide on that bench and use the bathtub. And then you have your walk-in bathtubs, which are sold now. I mean, you see advertisements on televisions for those. So the idea, again, is to create an easily accessible environment, possibilities of rolling without obstruction, and that you can put features into the bathroom that allow you to continue to use it across the lifespan, whether it's a bench in the shower. Some of them have drop-down seats that you can add as well. But always think of solutions. The possibilities are endless in a bathroom, and you can take a pretty challenging bathroom actually and turn it into a place that is reasonably accessible and sometimes very accessible. So let's talk about the approach to the house as well, because obviously you want to be able to get into the house. So you're looking at no step entries, and it's easier done when it's a new construction project where you actually add a stair or a ramp that maybe wraps around that's built into the environment. Let me tell you, UPS drivers, FedEx, they love houses with ramps. I was talking with one the other day and he goes, it should be a requirement, because they get so tired of running up and down stairs and also pushing their dollies around and bouncing them up and down stairs. So think of a mom with a stroller, all of those types of things. These ramps make life a lot easier for sure. You can add them obviously later, and you may want to do it with wood and tie it in. This one was not stained or painted yet, but it was an illustration. So when you're looking at the front of the house, you may need to make the front entry door wider. You can inexpensively add a metal ramp if it's something that you may be looking at temporarily. We have people who have hip surgeries and they're not going to make the entire modification to their front entry, but that can serve the purpose. And there's even folding ramps that are portable that can go to various places. That entrance door is key because you want to make sure that it is wide enough that you don't have a threshold that's creating a bump where you need to somehow get yourself over, you'll get caught on it. A level or a lever handle versus a doorknob or a push type of entry. All of those things make life a lot easier. Again, we talk about a level threshold. Now, what if you have a house where you go, I don't want to tear the entire door out, but I've got this threshold? You can actually buy threshold ramps. They're little ramps that go in front of your door and create a ramp up to the threshold so that you can easily get by. Here's a house that gives access to the patio. This is sometimes a notorious area where it's difficult for some people. And I would actually have recommended a little bit of a threshold ramp at that patio door because it would have still made it easier. And you'll notice the shelf was designed so that on the right there, so that the person in a wheelchair could get their feet underneath so they could easily get closer to that cabinet. Simple little design things that are not even noticeable by a lot of people can make the house a universally designed house. I'm not going to play this one per se, I think. Just to say, that was a patio door opener. And that patio door opener is actually operated off of a programmed pendant. You can put it on a pet. So when the pet goes towards the patio door, it automatically opens it to the width that the pet is and will open and close it. And you can also have it so that it will open and close for you. And you just put this little pendant on you and it automatically recognizes you and opens the door appropriately. Very handy for people who are trying to have to navigate a patio door. And I've also talked to people who put it and they said, you know, I never thought about it until I was walking out with a whole tray of drinks to the patio and thinking, I don't have to worry about how to open this door. It's going to open automatically for me. You want to plan those circulation routes so that they are at least 32 inches wide. And you want to look at your stairway options so that you can have a stair lift if at all possible. And they also make them now so that they can handle curves on your stairway. So if you've got a 2-flight stairway and you go, how am I going to do this? You can actually have one that does a curve so that they can get around that bend and make it easy. Elevator, bottom right, the stilts elevator, we've actually installed a few of those in the area because they don't require an elevator shaft. And again, it's a product that is out of Europe where they were making these modifications and turning homes into universally designed homes well before we were. And so it's an easy installation. Like I said, it's no elevator shaft and it can pop in and up to the next floor in an appropriate place. The person on the top right there, that is actually a wheelchair lift. And I just put it there because many times people who are in wheelchairs start to have very significant limitations to their social life because people go, I can't get them up and down the stairs. This actually lifts the chair. That woman is doing no physical exertion whatsoever. She is just there to simply guide it as it's going up the stairs. Absolutely remarkable piece of equipment. The one on the left is, again, another product out of Europe that is being used. This woman is approaching the stairs. She pushes a button. It turns into a vertical platform lift for her. And then it goes back to being a set of stairs so that it can be navigated easily by people who are just dashing up and down the stairs. So we are going to actually be installing one of those in the Bismarck area as well. So it can be used as stairs and a lift. Very cool. There's another example of a tubular type of elevator that can go to a second level. And then you don't even notice that there is a vertical platform lift, but it's that little white door next to the stairs that are can lift person to the second level. So again, we always need to be thinking of solutions. A vertical platform lift can be used outdoors to get people to a patio. And yep, even in North Dakota, with our 50 below wind chills, it can be used. There are platforms that will take people up and down the stairs. And then you've got your standard chairlift as well. So all of these are options that we can be looking at. And then what about the windows? Well, there are 3 different styles of windows that support universal design. And obviously, the first is the casement window, and the second is a kind of an awning window, and the third is a slide window. You want to be careful. You want to look at them to be sure that the handles or the cranks accommodate ease of mobility, and that they will slide easily as well. But there are significant changes that have been made in the last few years as it relates to windows and window design and the ease of opening them, because the builders are looking more and more at how to make homes universally designed. Simple things you can do right away. Change some of your doorknobs to levers, making it much easier. Now, maybe you have a doorknob that you go, I can't change this doorknob. It is what it is. You can buy these attachments that actually go over the doorknob that make it much easier to use. So those are simple little things that can be done that start to make your house more accessible and universally designed. What about door hinges? Because sometimes you go, I don't think I can widen this door. I've got light switch on this side of the door, and I've got, a heat duct on this side of the door or whatever. But you can still add about 2 inches to the door by using a double action hinge. And it'll actually make that space, doesn't make the door wider, but it takes that door, just that little bit of difference in the door there, and makes your door space just a little bit wider. All sorts of things that are easily done and accommodating. Let's make sure that we're always thinking of hand railings. We've got a lot of houses that people don't think about a handrail. It's like, oh, I've just bound up and down these stairs. But you can add them, and they come in beautiful finishes, not only just wood. They're very durable for outdoors, and they can be all sorts of colors and textures that can be used on the inside of your house, and making life a lot safer for you, for sure. We know that 61 million adults live with disabilities. That's a fact. But presently, 2 in 5 adults over 65 live with some sort of disability. And partially when we think of disability, we think permanent disability. But if a person goes in for hip surgery, they're going to be kind of disabled for a while. If a person goes in and has a knee done, they may be a little disabled for a period of time. Or you see these people going around with these scooters with their leg on it. They're technically disabled during that time, and a universal house would make life a lot easier for them. And the surveys are absolutely consistent. 95% of us want to age in our own home. And if COVID's taught us anything, home's not a bad place to be, for sure. But aging spurs innovation. ARP is on the forefront of this as well. Aging in place is no longer a dream. It's the new reality. And so accessory dwelling units are starting to pop up, especially on the East Coast and the West Coast, that are added to the back of property of family members and stuff like that. And they are being designed so that they are absolutely universally applicable, that the person can age in that home and have a space that works for them. They are amazing. So universal design looks at the entire home environment. And it takes into account the desired lifestyle, because you're looking to design a space that's going to transcend the lifespan of the person who's going to be living in that home, for sure. I would recommend a resource. Just because I'm giving this presentation for ARP doesn't mean I won't give a shameless commercial. The ARP Home Fit Guide is absolutely the best home fit guide out there. And you can get that from ARP, and it will walk you through kind of essentially what we were doing this morning in a very fast high flyover. It'll walk you through your house. It'll walk you from looking at the front door to making sure that you have a light on the outside of that door so that you can easily see where you're coming, motion sensor lights that make it easier for you to get around and you don't have to figure out where the light switch is in the dark. A little shelf next to your door when you enter so you can literally put your grocery bag down on it. I mean, it's got 100 suggestions and it walks through the house. It is a must have. Whether you're thinking I'm going to do this now or in the future, or you're looking at only one room of the house, I recommend the Home Fit Guide. So there, that's a shameless commercial. The other shameless commercial is Go Universal is in Bismarck. And our whole goal is to help people live longer and safer in their homes. And so that's the focus. And Scott Bernstein here, I can be a resource for you. And you can also find me at Mind Revive, which is the part of the organization I'm also a part of. And then another resource is put out by South Dakota State University Extension, the Adaptable Home Certification Overview, a great tool to look at some of the basics that make a home visitable for sure. It's a great tool and a great resource that's just gotten out there. So with that, I want to say thanks for listening. And what I really want to do is start to dialogue with you and start to answer questions because you must have specifics.
Hey, thank you, Scott. Thanks for the presentation and covered a lot of ground as part of that. And we have a couple of questions in the chat. And as you're formulating some additional questions to either put in the chat or get ready, we want to, again, just quickly prompt your thinking. And after listening to Scott's presentation, we have a second poll question for you that we're going to put up. And so the question we want to know is, does your community offer a home that will help you live independently as you age? For example, a home with a zero-step entry or whatnot. And so simple question, in your opinion, do you know? Yes, some, but limited quality, or no, about if your community offers a home that'll help you live independently as you age. And while you're answering that question, I'm going to get to the first set of questions. And Scott, the first question is about, and you touched on this briefly, but how do you know if a contractor has experience with universal design? And how do you, what are the types of questions you might ask to find a contractor or to locate contractors?
That is an absolute amazing question. And first of all, if you go to a general contractor, and so I'm going to make some big statements here first and then focus in. If you go to a general contractor and you go, can you widen my front door? Can you, those types of things, most general contractors are going to be able to do that because they're basic construction elements. But you would really want to, if you're looking and going, okay, I want to change my bathroom, I need to do something in my kitchen, you would want to interview that contractor, ask them what experiences they have had doing this, and can they actually show you any pictures of places where they have done this type of work? Can they give you some illustrations or examples of what they have done? And then ask them if they have any certifications, because there are certifications that are available through places called VGM. And some of those certifications are available to contractors. And so ask them if they have any certifications, because they'll know if they go, oh yeah, I'm with the Home Builders Association. No, not the Home Builders Association, but literally in universal design or aging in place certifications. Do they have anybody on their staff that has those certifications? And then one of the things you'll notice that you may have noticed on Go Universal, it said QSP, Quality Service Provider. And that is through the state of North Dakota, which means that the state of North Dakota recognizes a person as being able to make home modifications that comply with universal design or ADA acceptability. So some of those things are going to help you as you work through the process for sure.
Thank you, Scott. I got to get myself off of mute, my own technology troubles here. So thank you, Scott, for that. Second question, and you kind of alluded to it, but talk about, are there some of the things you talked about today, I imagine could be fairly expensive, fairly involved, whatnot. Are there programs that support the cost of those modifications, or places folks could get additional resource assistance to do some of those things?
Yeah, great. First of all, many times people will say, will Medicare cover this, for example? And no, Medicare will not cover these types of things. If you are a veteran, there are some benefits that can be tapped into as it relates to home modifications. So you would certainly want to check into some of those benefits. There are also other organizations out there that will help support and fund some of those, such as, Easter seals, you name it, these other very, what I would call specific charitable organizations that will come alongside people sometimes because of a special need that that person may have. And they'll say, we'll help you and we'll provide some of the money to help provide you with that modification that you need. So there are those accesses as well. Then if you are obviously in financial need, state of North Dakota, and I said quality service provider, the state of North Dakota has taken a pretty significant step to say we want people to age in place for as long as possible. And so they are willing to also fund some of these modifications to a certain dollar level, so that a person can continue to stay in their own home longer. And so those options are available. There are actually, in some states, so far I haven't discovered one in North Dakota, long-term care insurance policies that have started to say, you know what, we'll pay for the modification, because it's a lot less money to pay for the modification than it is to put them in a place where they're going to be cared for. But we'll tap into that resource. So some states have started to open that up as well. So there are other places to find financial resources. And also there are some places that will do, some organizations, if they won't fully fund, have little financial resources that you can tap into, low interest loans and stuff like that as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Scott. Bob, I'm going to put in the chat related to your question. As Scott was answering your other question, I was trying to make sure I could find the right page. Your question about contractors, and that ARP, as part of the Home Fit Guide or a series of worksheets, Scott had touched on this, actually has some interview notes, pages, and guides that might be helpful in terms of interviewing contractors as well. And so I put the link in the chat for you to be able to find those and be able to download those that you might find useful.
Yes.
Related to that, the other thing I would recommend is last month, as part of this housing series, we did a deep dive on the Home Fit Guide. And so you can always visit the ARP North Dakota YouTube channel and watch that live back, or aarp.org/ND events. And the recording of that is on there as well, which talks very in depth about the actual guide and how to use that as well. So other questions? There are not any other questions in the chat right now. So you can either put it in the chat, or if you have a question, I'd invite you to take yourself off of mute and ask our question of our presenter, Scott. And while we're waiting for that, Janelle has graciously shared the poll results for us about, does your community offer a home that will help you live independently as you age? 40% said that we do, 50% said some but very limited, and 10% said no. So it sounds like folks are finding some of it, which is good.
Which is good. Let me just give a couple little vignettes here for sure that'll kind of spur maybe some questions. And that is that because I previously was an executive director in assisted living, part of the reason I have a passion around this is that I would watch people moving in who really didn't need to move in, but because their house didn't work for them. So I'll give you just a quick little illustration. I had a woman and she came in and she was not going to be able to navigate anymore by virtue of her mobility factors. And so I looked at her, and finally in the course of the conversation, I said, you know, did you ever think of putting a stair lift in? And she looked at me and she goes, oh, no, well, do you realize, I bet you that stair lift would have cost me somewhere between $3,000 to $5,000. I just let her sit with that for a little while. And then I looked at her, I said, you do realize you're going to be paying me that per month to live here. And so when you look at the return on investment, staying in your home longer is a huge financial return on your investment because you've made that investment already. So you're able to live there longer. And that stair lift can be removed when you do choose to leave that house. And the other thing is that we are in a population where a lot of us are aging in our homes and trying to figure out how to stay there. And in turn, how is this going to work as it relates to real estate and the value of real estate in the future? So all the implications are there for sure. And right now in Phoenix, the snowbird capital of the world, they have done a lot to try to make their communities very accessible, very livable, and also to make where people dwell very accessible and livable and universally designed, because it's been great for their real estate market. That's what has attracted people here. So.
Well, thank you, Scott. I appreciate it. And a reminder to those watching, again, that these programs are being recorded. So Scott went through a lot of stuff really fast. And so if you need to go back and rewatch it, you can always find that on our YouTube channel and watch at your convenience. Or as I mentioned, and I just put it in the chat, www.arp.org/ND events, and we'll have it loaded up there shortly. Scott, any last closing comments before we turn it
No,
on?
other than stay in your home for as long as possible. Honestly, I mean, that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, Scott, thank you for being here with us. Additionally, as I put in the chat, the arp.org/ND events will give you all of the upcoming events as well. We have a number of them coming up in the near future that may be of interest to you. And finally, as I mentioned at the beginning, Bismarck is an enrolled ARP network of age-friendly community. And as part of that process, the city and ARP are continuing to collect feedback on what's important to you as you age in this community. And what was said during the announcement of the city becoming a network of age-friendly community at the city commission meeting in May, the input from Bismarck residents will help shape the future of Bismarck. After all, engaged citizens build stronger communities. So after this event, you're going to get a post-event survey. Included in that post-event survey are some questions about the needs that you see and that we want to prioritize, that you want to see prioritized to make Bismarck more livable. Please take the 5 minutes to complete that. We plan to aggregate that feedback and share it with the city of Bismarck as they continue to build their plan. Last, I want to thank again Scott for joining us. I also want to thank Bob and Val for the excellent work they did greeting and welcoming people. I want to thank those of you who asked questions. And then last but certainly not least, I want to thank my team, Lyle, Doreen, Wendy, Janelle, and our intern Alexis for the excellent work to put this together. I say it oftentimes, but I hope it's sincere. I get to do a lot of the camera stuff, but it's really all of the behind the scenes work that they help pull together and make it work. So thank you again for joining us today.